Welcome to Carlisle and Jenkins Garden Market. And with Arbor Day right around the corner, there is no better time than now to talk trees. I'm joined today by Joe Jenkins, the owner, the horticulturist to the stars, and all things trees today, to help us understand how to pick a tree, how to care for a tree, and make sure your tree can thrive after you get it planted. Joe, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Well, tell me all about Jenkins Garden Market and how you got your start.
Well, Jenkins Garden Market has been here on this property for 8 years. I've been in the tree business now for going on 25 years, but I was able to work and get some skills at some other places, and then we were able to follow our dreams and open our place where we could help people find their right plant here. This is our 10th spring now.
Well, we certainly are very glad that you are here, because trees sometimes are not as easy as you think they would be.
They can be tricky, yeah.
Well, let's start with, how do you choose the right tree for your space?
Sure. Let me show you.
Well, let's go.
So we're here in our retail nursery where we have 1 or 2 of every species or variety that we sell. We have our fruit trees over here on the left. We have some ornamentals on the right, and then in front of us, and then we have our shade trees.
What are some key things to keep in mind, Joe, while you're picking the tree?
Yeah, so a lot of people have different concerns. So some people are very excited about having fruit in their yard. Some people really don't like having fruit in their yard. They don't want to attract animals, or they don't have the space, or they don't have the time or ability to pick it. So we only try to sell fruit trees to people who really want that as part of their landscape. Ornamentals can be a really good thing for people. They usually have flowers, some kind of decorative fruit, and they're usually a smaller size, which really helps in a lot of our modern size landscapes. Shade trees are very good options for people's yards. They provide us obviously with shade, but they also shade people, and they shade their houses, so they can give us energy benefits as well. But a lot of these trees on the shade side are going to need a big yard to really flourish and thrive in. So a lot of times we end up kind of on the ornamental side with a bigger tree, like a flowering crab or something, for people's yards.
Will you show me the proper way to plant a tree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
Well, let's go. Joe, I'm ready to learn.
Sounds good, Cass. Well, this is my favorite part of my job. I get to actually put a tree into the ground. That's why I have the business that I do and why we do what we do. So we've chosen a flowering crabapple here for this site. You see on both sides of us, we have other trees, and they aren't quite at their mature size yet. So we know that this space is kind of constricted. So we chose a new variety that's going to be a little more upright and not spread quite as much as other ones do. So that goes back to our selecting the right plant for the right place. And we would do that in somebody's yard or here on our avenue of trees at the garden center. So we've got our pink spires crabapple that we're going to put in here. And I can talk you through some of the main points of making sure we install this plant correctly if you want.
Perfect.
Okay, so one of the big things that people do incorrectly is they don't know how to gauge what size of a hole they need. It's a question we get at the garden center all the time. How big of a hole do I need? I think some people are scared that they have to dig a really big hole, or they just don't know. And the answer is, usually with a container grown plant like this, we only need to be about as deep as the soil is in the pot. So it's not, we got to go out and dig a hole deep enough for a fence post or anything. But we do like to be about twice as wide as the pot. So the hole that we've started here for this plant is about the right width at least. And then now we're going to take this plant out of its pot and then check it for depth with the surrounding grade so that we make sure we're at the right height.
Okay.
Would you like to help me slide it over there?
Sure.
So we usually want to carry it by the pot like we were doing, and then steady the top. And then I'm just going to gently slide it out of the pot itself. And then I'm just going to do a quick inspection here to make sure that we don't have too many circling roots. When plants like this grow in a container for too long, the roots get to the edge of the pot and they start to circle. And we need to correct that when we actually install the plant. Otherwise, these roots that are bent around the outside will actually continue to do that. They'll just stay in that place. New roots will come out and go away from the tree. But right now we can correct that. So before we tear it all apart, I'm going to pull the stake out of the middle, and we're just going to check the height. So I'm going to place it down in the hole, and then I'm going to use this stick across the grade here And that's exactly what I'm looking for. I want these first roots that are coming off of the trunk of the tree to be right at this grade. So that way the tree isn't too buried, because a lot of people want to bury them deep like it's a tomato plant or something, but that actually doesn't give you more strength. It'll actually decrease the strength of the tree in the long run, because the roots need to be near the surface to get oxygen. So we like this depth. So I'm going to pull it back up out of here. And then we're just going to correct these circling roots. And this one is a tree that we grew last year. So we like to put our trees in bigger pots than other nurseries, sorry. And so ours don't get as root bound as some nurseries that really push their plants with a lot of fertilizer.
Joe, I'm always worried when I'm breaking these roots up that if I pull one, I'm going to kill the tree.
That's a fear that a lot of people have. And no, you're not going to kill this tree if we pull these roots apart. In fact, we're doing it a favor, like I said, stopping those circling roots from happening. One thing, we're planting this here in April, especially doing it this time of year, this tree is not going to get a lot of stress from that root breakage. If you were doing this in the middle of July and trying to correct this, then we run the risk of really stressing the tree, because it'd be hotter and the tree would have more fully developed leaves. But that's why Arbor Day is in April and why we encourage people to plant trees in April, just because it helps reduce that shock that they get if we damage the roots or transplant them sometimes. So I feel pretty good about this. We've got it pretty well broken up and we know the height's good. So I'm just going to go ahead and place it in the hole. And then if you want to help me, we need to make sure that the right face is facing the road here.
How do I know what's the right face?
So we're going to actually get it propped up in here. It's a little windy, but I think it'll stand for a little bit. And then we're going to take a step back and actually look at the tree. And usually a tree in the nursery, they grow next to other trees. Sometimes they have a little bit of a flat spot that will fill in, but usually we have what we call a face side, and we want to face that towards the road in this case, or if it was at your front door, we'd want to face that towards the sidewalk. So if we look at this tree around, this side's probably actually its face. So I'm going to just give it a little quarter turn here towards the highway. And then I'm just going to double check my roots. I like that. And so now we can start the process of backfilling the tree.
Okay.
And it's just as simple as it sounds. We're going to put soil in, and in this case, we're going to put it back in about 3 inches at a time. And then we're going to lightly compress that soil. So if you want to hold it straight for me, I'll shovel a little bit in. And then all those roots that we teased out, we're actually going to lay them into this nice soft soil that we pulled out of this hole. And that's just going to help give them a jump start and make sure they're pointing away from the trunk of the tree and in the right direction. Now is the best time to correct any of these root issues that we can sometimes get with nursery grown trees. All right, so if you like how it is vertically, I'm just going to lightly press this soil down. And now would actually be a really good time if you want to talk about soil. Like, we have really good soil here. This is a really nice piece of Iowa farmland, basically. But a lot of people in town and new to subdivisions, they don't have soil that's quite this nice. So if we were pulling up a bunch of clay, we might buy some compost or some humus or something and add that into our soil now and use that to help fill in the gaps between big hard chunks of clay. And what it does is it displaces air and lets us have the right water and air balance in the soil.
So what about fertilizer? Should I fertilize my tree too?
So that's a really good question.
Joe? I felt like you just physically cringed.
I did, yeah. So we have really good soil here, so we don't need to fertilize this tree. The soil here has excellent fertility. If you have a more clay soil or a soil that's been disturbed, you might need to supplement your tree with a little extra nutrients. The recommendation of which product and how much is going to depend on what kind of soil you have and what time of year. A lot of times we plant trees in the fall, and we actually don't recommend fertilizing in the fall because the tree can't really use it and it would be kind of a waste of fertilizer. But
now, I know I'm probably early for this question, but talk to me about water. What's the right way to water your tree?
Yeah, watering is actually one of the most hard things to explain to people, because watering a tree is so dependent on the tree, the size, the soil you have, and how you're applying the water. So in this case, we're going to backfill this all the way, and we're going to give this tree about 10 gallons of water now. I like to measure it in volume just because a lot of people have a bucket and they can apply it using that as a measuring cup. We used to tell people how to use it, how to water their tree with letting the hose run at a slow trickle, but that's really very inaccurate depending on how fast it's trickling, and it's just, really hard to explain that to people. So here, I know the soil drains really well. We're kind of up on this little hill. So this tree is probably gonna need a little more water than others. We're probably gonna water it with 5 gallons of water twice a week throughout this first growing season. If we had a really heavy clay soil that was holding the water, we might check it twice a week, but we probably wouldn't water it twice a week. We'd probably water it more like once a week or every other week, depending on what the weather conditions are that time of year.
Is it common that people kill their trees through overwatering?
It is very common. Not getting the depth right and then not applying the right amount of water are two things that definitely lead to people not having success with their trees.
Joe, that was a great introduction to tree planting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, happy Arbor Day. Thanks for coming out to Jenkins.
Absolutely. Well, if you would like to learn more about tree planting, have an opportunity to talk to an expert, make sure you visit jenkinsgardenmarket.com.